and welcome to another Hodgepodge Australia video. Today we're doing a rose petal cake. This is my first attempt at a rose petal cake. I'm using 4 thin layers. I've got 2 vanilla and 2 chocolate cakes. I have levelled them off as best I can, and I have 2 serves of vanilla buttercream. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the cake together first. So we take our first layer, obviously, onto the table. We're going to layer it with some buttercream, put a nice layer in. Next time, again, you always learn from experience, but I would probably make 2.5 times of the buttercream so I can have really nice thick layers in between, but I was being a little bit stingy this time because I wasn't sure how far it was going to take me. So putting a layer of buttercream in between each layer, and then we're going to stack the layers, repeating the process each step we go with the layers. Now that we're putting on our last layer, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to flip it upside down, and I'm going to use the flat bottom once I take off the extra chocolate, and I'm going to use the bottom as the top, so I know it's absolutely perfectly lovely and flat and even. Then we're going to add our buttercream onto the top, and we're going to smooth it around, and then we're actually going to go around all the edges. So as you can see, it really doesn't matter that you've got all this icing point poking out on the sides, because it's all going to get smoothed down and evened out on the sides. So, and really good, you can use the rest of the buttercream up on the top, nice and smooth, and then you're going to go around the sides, and we're going to make it one whole nice cylinder. Once we're happy that we've got all the coverage that we want, we just smooth off the edges, get it nice as flat as possible, and then it goes in the fridge for half an hour until it's set. Well, at least half an hour, leave it in there longer if you can. Then we're going to move on to covering it with fondant. I'm using a nice white pre-made satin ice fondant, nice and easy because we're using this for the base. So we're going to get our ruler, we're going to measure the cake to know how long we have to measure it out to. This was about 7 inches, because I started in centimetres, realised I needed to change to inches. It's about 7 inches on diameter, and I think it was about 4 high from memory. Silly me, I did not write it down. So what we needed to do was needed to add those together. So we had 4 and 4 because we double the height, and the 7. So we had 15 inches. So I needed to get my trusty mat, leaning off my bench, trusty mat out onto the bench, and we're going to roll it out to 15 inches in diameter. Now that we're happy that we've reached our 15-inch diameter, we're going to pick up the mat. I find it easier to just pick up the mat rather than having to try to bend it over the rolling pin. That doesn't work for me, something always sticks. So I just pick up the mat, lay it over the top, and peel the mat back off the fondant, and you have it all there in one piece without it sticking to itself. Here we get to start the fun process of smoothing fondant down the sides. Now I'm still learning how to do this. I am getting a little bit better at it, but it does take me a while because I like to be nice and slow. But moving your hand down, I did buy myself a smoother, but I found it was sticking, so I'm going to have to practice with that a bit more. I went back to using my hands. Hands are the best tools anyway, as long as they're nice and clean. So pulling the fondant down from the top as you go, smoothing. That way the creases are going to be on the fondant that is at the cake board that you're going to be cutting off anyway. So if you just give it a slight pull when you're smoothing it down the sides, you can push those creases down to the base of the cake. So going right around the cake, making it as smooth as possible. I like to take my time, as I said, and you will notice, and I do know that they're there, but again, I'm still learning, please bear with me. There are a few bubbles on the side of the fondant when I am finished. And I do pop a couple of them and smooth them down, but there are still a couple of bubbles. I do know that, and please, as I mentioned, I am still learning, so I hope you're learning along with me, and we'll get better as we go. But pushing down, And we are going to be covering it all with petals anyway, so I really don't mind if there's a couple of little tears in my fondant, and I don't mind if there's a couple of little bubbles, because it all gets covered in the wash. Nobody can have it perfect every time. Well, at least I can't have it perfect every time. So I'm going to smooth my fondant down as best I can, and then we're going to cut off the excess and put it aside, and we'll get ready to start our petals. As you can see, I've already done the first layer of my petals here. I've done them in a dark yellow, and I'm about to start the second layer of my mid yellow. Now I have, again, this is my first time doing the rose petals, so I was learning as I went, which is why you're not seeing the bottom layer, but I did end up perfecting it. So here we go with the second layer of petals. I ended up using about 50 grams of fondant for each colour for this size cake, and I also mixed it with some gum paste so that I could make it a little more stiff in the end. So you really need to roll this fondant out really, really thin to get those lovely petal effects when you roll over it with the ball tool. I have since acquired a pasta maker that I'm going to use to roll my fondant out in the future, and I'm very excited to use that and test it out yet. I haven't done that yet. That will be in a future video you'll get to see. So learn along with me, and I can show you, hopefully, the do's, and you will probably learn some of the don'ts from watching me as well, which is perfectly fine. I've just used a round cutter. I've just made just circles. I didn't buy like a rose petal shape, anything like that. I've just got a plain circle cutter. I've done a whole bunch of circles. I'm going to put it on my foam pad, and then we're going to use the ball tool to go around the edges and turn these into what look like rose petals. Using the large end of the ball tool, you want to hold it up straight, and you want to glide it around over the edge of the fondant, having the ball half on and half off the fondant. Now this to me was tricky, and I knew that once you learnt the trick you would know the trick, and after that it would be easy, so please stick with it. It did take me a while to get the hang of it, and I am self-taught. I haven't done any classes, so you can teach yourself as well. But holding it upright and gliding it around the fondant, half on, half off, and it sounds weird, but you need to be gentle but apply pressure, and there you get your petal effect. And you're just going to stick them onto the cake with a little bit of water. As you can see there, bit of water on the cake. I'm using my lovely water brush again. I've got the wrong end of the ball, turn it around, there you go, sliding it around, one petal at a time, but at the same time you only want to do a few petals at a time so that the fondant isn't drying out while it's waiting its turn to be curled. Sliding it around. Again, I got better as I went along, and once you're putting them all together, it does cover a lot of faults. So this cake is very forgiving, and the petals are very forgiving. Sticking it onto the cake, moving on to the next one. It can take a while, and I can't imagine how much longer it would take if you're doing quite a high cake or several tiers of this cake. However, I found it quite rewarding, and I was very happy with myself for learning a new skill. You're going to move all the way along the cake, all in a row. You want your second layer to be covering the creases in the first layer. So well, personally, I don't like the petals to all be lining up all the way up the cake. I like it to be, a little bit zigzagged, and it covers, again, it's a bit better for covering any forgiving faults that you might have in there. So I've done 2 layers of the second coloured fondant, and then I'm also going to do another layer at the top of yet a paler yellow. So we're going from the dark up to the light, and there it is there. And then I've done those petals as well, and I really think it just looks really pretty. I'm really happy with my work, and I've got to tell you, if I can do it, then you can do it, and you really should give it a go. I've also made this cute little owl out of fondant a few days earlier, so he's nice and dry. I'll do a tutorial another time on how to create the owl. He was actually really easy, and I was really, really happy with him. I'm going to pop a couple of toothpicks into his bottom to help hold him on. I don't want him sliding off my cake. Just 2 in, extra support, and then I'm going to pick the best part of the top of the cake that I want to put him on. So I'm going to have a look and find out where I want the front of my cake to be based on my petals and which area I prefer to be facing the front. Place the owl on the top, and there is my rose petal cake. Having a look here, there he is, all the flower on the top. He's also got a decoration. That's the top of the cake. And then just to finish it off for the day, I've used melted chocolate, I've done writing on the top, and I've added just some little cut out white fondant flowers at the top just to finish it off. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I do hope that you subscribe to us here at Hodgepodge Australia, because as I'm learning, I hope you're learning.